Thomas McCarthy, free hit. What players to pick? Okay, so let's bring up a graphic. Free hit. We've got, of course, the teams with the double game week. We've got Arsenal, Brighton Hove Albion, Chelsea, Huddersfield, Leicester, Man City, Man United, Newcastle, Southampton, Swansea, Spurs and West Ham. Of course, Man City and Spurs look like they have a very good double game week. Man United also have Brighton Hove Albion and West Ham. So that's 3 big teams with good double game weeks. Arsenal against Burnley and Leicester. Leicester look like they've switched off. So, potentially, Arsenal have a good double game week now. I mean, Leicester conceded 5 goals against Crystal Palace. And then Arsenal have Huddersfield in the final game of the season. Swansea could be your way to get some cheap players in that could be differentials. They, of course, are fighting for survival. Bournemouth, Southampton and Stoke. Then we got Crystal Palace, Stoke and West Brom. Crystal Palace aren't 100% safe yet, so they may be looking to do the business against Stoke. But that is, of course, if you're looking for some cheap options potentially and you like the look of that Crystal Palace versus Stoke fixture. If we look at the table, we can see that Crystal Palace are 11th on 38 points. Southampton have 3 games, so they can get 9 points. So potentially Southampton could get 41 points. Swansea could get 42 points. Huddersfield, West Ham, Brighton Hove Albion, Watford all have 3 games, so they can all climb above Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace still need to get a result. Swansea just outside of the relegation area. They of course are going to need some results. They have got a loss, 2 draws and 2 losses, whereas Southampton have picked up a win. As far as the other teams around here, Stoke really need to get something pretty soon. West Brom, having looked down and out, have actually gone and picked up a draw against Swansea, a win against Man United, a draw against Liverpool, and now a win against Newcastle. So they're fighting for their survival, potentially some West Bromwich Albion options as well. So West Brom don't have the double game week though, as far as I'm aware. Nope, they don't. So for them, if I can find out what fixtures they've got, it's looking pretty dire with Tottenham and then Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace options I like because it's in their hands and they seem in form, and there's some good options there. Swansea, not necessarily in form, but their players are going to be cheap, enabling you to pick some of those Man City, Man United, Arsenal and Tottenham Spurs options. Tottenham Spurs. So hopefully that's given you some idea what players I'd look for. I think if we're looking at each individual squad, I think Jesus is pretty nailed on for Man City. Sterling looks like the best option into that side as a midfielder. In defence, you could pretty much go with anyone. As far as goalkeepers go, Edison, again, might take a penalty at some point, potentially. So Edison might be a good differential if he does take one. Man United, I'd say at the moment, I still don't see any Man United option that I have any faith in consistently scoring points. Of course, David De Gea is the most consistent goalkeeper in the Premier League, so you could go with Man United. Swansea, no players really stood out. You could go for a defender, hoping they get some clean sheets. Jordan Ayew seems the most likely to do something for them. Arsenal, Aubameyang didn't do anything in the Man United game, but Aubameyang looked good in all the games prior to that. Lacazette looked decent last game week, so you could go for one of those options. You could go for defence. Monreal seems the most likely to pick up points other than just defensive points. Spurs, I think if you have a Spurs midfielder, you're probably pretty fine with whichever one you've picked out of the main 3, Son, Ali and Eriksen. Kane, of course, is chasing that golden boot. Defender-wise, Vertonghen is the one I've got purely because he seems most nailed on. Palace, you've got Zaha, you've got Milivojevic, you've got Van Aanholt to be looking at. Other than that, if I was going to take a punt on any of the other sides, you could potentially go Pascal Gross from Brighton Hove Albion. Chelsea, Willian still seems like the one that's performed the best overall during the season, but you could look at plenty of options in that Chelsea side. Huddersfield, I probably wouldn't go towards. Leicester look like they're switched off for the season. Newcastle, some decent options there. Jose Perez potentially, De Vraka, but again, Newcastle now, are they safe? If we have a look at the table, Newcastle 41. They're not safe, but I mean, all they need really is like a point, and then they should be safe. So Potentially Newcastle need a result while they've got the double game week. Watford, they could potentially get a result in the Watford game. Doubt they're going to get something from the Spurs game. West Ham, again, they need results as well. Arnautovic is probably the best one. Cresswell did get some points today as well. So those are kind of the players I'd look at if I was free hitting. What you'd have noticed from the game week just gone, if we scroll down to the results, there were some upsets. Stoke getting a draw against Liverpool. You've got Crystal Palace thrashing Leicester 5-0. You've got West Brom beating Newcastle 1-0. You've got Southampton beating Bournemouth 2-1. So these teams are fighting for the last. Swansea only lost 1-0 to Chelsea. These teams are fighting for survival. So there could be points to be picked up by looking at the teams that aren't necessarily the ones that have been in form all season, but now they need the result.